Hi, I'm Donna Ray.
And I'm Al Wadley.
Welcome to our podcast, Feldenkrais for Life.
In each episode, we will discuss ideas and experiences pertaining to the Feldenkrais Method.
You're going to learn skills that will move pain to comfort, anxiety to ease, and we'll explore learning and how to spark creativity.
To learn more about Donna, visit her site at donnaray.com.
To find Al Wadley, go to achievingexcellence.com. Hi, Al. Good to see you.
Good morning, Donna. How are you? Good to see you too.
I'm good. I'm glad we're meeting today. We had a little hiatus, but it's so great to be back in contact and recording with you.
It is indeed. It is springtime, and there's so many good things going on. It's happy to see you and be talking with you again.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to talk about differentiation today. And I know that's a big part of the method, the Feldenkrais method, both in awareness through movement, our verbally guided lessons, and even in our hands-on work. So, give us a little more information about what that means.
So differentiation, let's start with actually what differentiation is not. And a lack of differentiation is like what most humans experience in the upper back, across the shoulder blades and the ribs back there, where all those parts get stuck together. It gives the experience of what most people call a lot of upper back tension, which can lead to pain and discomfort and limited movement. And we approach working with that area by separating out what we call differentiating the skeletal parts in movement, which helps them to be sensed by your brain and your nervous system that they're different. They move separately from one another. And this sends impulses from that part to the nervous system up to the brain, where in the brain is also making differentiation. And you can look at that. You can imagine that the back is represented in the brain as a cluster of neuronal firing. If it's all stuck together, so is the neuronal firing. And if we start to differentiate all the parts, then each part has its own, neural pathway that's starting to be separated out of that cluster. And then we can start to help those parts to work better together, which creates a greater sense of ease, flow, and comfort, and makes life a lot easier. And we start to represent or to connect with more of our potential. Our abilities improve.
That's so true. So let's do a little experiment. So when you're talking about the upper back, for example, and so true, many people report having discomfort in their upper back or their neck, shoulder area. And when we touch people or we observe people while we're guiding movement lessons, we see that, for example, the shoulder blades are not free. They're not free to glide across the rib cage. So put your hands on your hips for a moment. Your elbows are pointing out to your sides, and move your elbows back a little bit, and then bring them back to the middle. And repeat that a number of times. Now, as you repeat the movement, sense your chest and notice your breathing. Do you breathe in or out when you move your elbows back? Breathe in when you move your elbows back and sense your chest expanding. And then breathe out when your elbows go back to your sides. Now pay attention to your shoulder blades. And sometimes people call them their wings. I love that. So your wings are on your back and they can glide in the direction of your spine. When you move your elbows back, your shoulder blades move. And rest your shoulders, by the way. It's not necessary to lift your shoulders toward your ears. They can rest when you do the movement of taking your elbows back. Breathe in, your chest lifts a little bit, and then let go, and your elbows return to their sides. Okay, so now pause for a moment. Observe yourself resting. Let your arms come down and rest. You could be sitting or standing, obviously not driving and doing this. Okay, now, if it's possible, reach around behind your back, say with your left arm or your right arm, and touch the opposite shoulder blade. Some people find this easy to do, other people find it more difficult. Just do whatever you can do. Bring your hand back behind you and reach across and touch your shoulder blade. Okay. Now, I'm assuming that you chose the easy hand to bring behind you. That's what we usually do. So if you're touching your right shoulder blade, put your right hand on your right hip or your waist, and now move your right elbow back and forth and sense your shoulder blade with the fingertips of your left hand. You may be doing this in the opposite way. Do you sense the shoulder blade moving? Now, if you do, you have a differentiated shoulder blade. If you don't sense a movement in your shoulder blade, it's not yet differentiated. So there you have it. There's an example of what we do. And now rest a moment again. And while you're resting with your arms down, sense your back. Just pay attention to your sensations in your back, your shoulder blades, your arms. And I wonder if the one that you were touching feels more prominent. How about you, Al? Can you feel a difference?
It does. It feels more prominent. It feels more defined in its perimeter. And it feels lighter.
Mm-hmm.
It feels lighter, which is an interesting feeling.
Well, this is something that's really unique because most people never do this. And we changed the muscular tonus, the contraction, the tension pattern, you could say, but we also made something light up in your brain. You now have an idea or an image of your shoulder blades that you didn't have before. So that's an example of how differentiation makes a difference in your self-image or your mental mind map of your movement. And the more highly differentiated we are, as you referred to earlier, the greater our comfort, the more we learn, and the better self-use we have so that we can engage in activities the way that we want to.
And I think what you're describing is what we often refer to as integration. When we differentiate these parts, we want to create a way for them all to come back together and to work in a harmonious way. And one of the ways that I think about this and often describe to my students is an undifferentiated movement, undifferentiated parts is like a choir singing in unison. So it can get the job done, but it's not that pretty. It's not that interesting. If all the parts of the choir, if all the members of the choir are singing their own part, their own harmony, then it becomes something that's really beautiful to listen to and even to watch. And that's what we're after in terms of movement. So when we separate out these parts, we differentiate them, we're going to create the conditions for integration whereby the movement becomes something that's really elegant, comfortable, and beautiful to experience.
Yeah. So we can apply this concept of differentiation to movement, to learning, to thinking, to our emotions, to our voices, to singing. It's true of the symphonies that we listen to really everything. It's a concept that applies to all learning and all walks of life. It's so important. Now, it even applies to watching TV or movies. So after you watch a movie, if you're talking about the movie with your wife, do you ever talk about soundtrack, acting quality, storyline, resolution, camera takes? I mean, there's so many parts of a film, right?
So many.
And the more we pay attention to the different parts that make it a whole, that integrate that film, the more interesting it becomes. Now, there's something tricky about this that I really love. You can do all of those things without thinking about it while you're watching the film. You can do it after the fact.
It's true. You can review the film in your mind. You can make these distinctions about what you watched, the characters, the plot lines, the plot holes, all kinds of distinctions you can make. Yes.
And that's a quality of our minds that's almost magical, because we can do what we do and after the fact know what we've done if we know how to differentiate. But if you don't know how to differentiate, you can't do it after the fact. It's a learnable skill.
It is true. It's something that we learn in many ways in Feldenkrais lessons. And, many professions involve or use differentiation to discriminate in so many ways. You mentioned a friend earlier who reviews movies, and she has just dozens and dozens of categories of distinctions that she makes when she's reviewing a movie. Now, I have maybe 6. I don't know. Not that many categories. So I think it's really remarkable that somebody has that detailed clarity in watching movies and can go through them and remember them and discriminate like that. That's phenomenal.
Well, after this conversation, you're going to start doing it more.
I bet I am. I'll probably start tonight.
The funny thing is, whether you want to or not, we usually, we absorb our conversations and we put them to use. It's a phenomenal aspect of our minds.
That's right. Probably everybody listening to this, well, if they watch TV or movie in the coming day or days, they're going to be paying attention to things that they had not been paying attention to before.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happens automatically when the Feldenkrais method is practiced. So we frequently are asked by our students, what homework should I do? Now, sometimes we give people little tasks to do to remember to pay attention to their movement. But even without any homework, people will come for their next lesson, whether it be in a couple of days or a week later, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I realized when I was bending down and picking up my child's toys, it was so much easier. Why? Why did that lesson make that easier? I would not have thought that would happen. And then we can talk about how we integrate through this differentiation process and how our nervous system wakes up and it puts it to use.
It does. It does. And quite spontaneously and often unexpected ways. As you're mentioning, I too have many students, they get a lesson and they come back and like, wow, this thing was so much easier. I had no idea. I left the office and I could see things clearly. There was vibrant colors and details, and I could see off into the distance, like a whole different way of viewing the world. So there's all kinds of ways that happens. And I think it was really important for Dr. Feldenkrais. He mentions this in his book, Body and Mature Behavior, how there's 2 paths of development. One is one that leads to decline, and that's the undifferentiated path, where we stop making distinctions about ourselves and about our experience. And then the other one is paying attention and making distinctions. And that's the path of improvement. So it makes that distinction. And so his work, of course, working primarily through movement and sensation, but also, he involved everything, thinking and sensing and feeling too. But the primary method is in the movement. So that's the path of improvement. And that generalizes. So it's a beautiful thing about differentiating work with the movement is it generalizes to all these different areas of life. And you get to have that potential that you get to experience in the pathway of improvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's look at how emotions are involved in this. So distinctions in our emotional responses are also enriching, very enriching. So if you have very few categories of emotional description, so you may have a lot of variability in your actual emotional responses. But if you only have the words to say, I'm mad, I'm glad, I'm surprised, then you're very limited, because part of being mad can be irritability. It can be frustration. And when we look at the continuum or nuance and we talk about more specifically, I'm frustrated, I want to understand you better, instead of I'm angry with you, I don't get you, that comes across very, very differently, you see? So even I love you, we all want to hear that. But if you make some distinctions and you say, I love it when you hold my hand, I love it when you look me in the eyes, I love it when you sit next to me on the couch and watch a movie and our thighs are touching. If you add some nuance to I love you, wow, people feel so uplifted because they don't realize that all these little things are going on and they're observed and they're appreciated. It's just, I love you. It can almost sound like, get me a glass of water.
It's true. I really like the way you nuance that. And it does make a difference. It opens up so much more ways of experiencing love in those examples, like a subtle touch and a context and all these different ways of doing it. So it becomes more vibrant, more alive, and more fulfilling. I really like that. I was following along in my imagination as you guided me through that. And I was like, wow, this feels really good. I feel so much more love now, even though my wife's not here. I did it in my imagination and had those experiences. It was really beautiful.
Yeah. And, I'm so glad you said that too, because when we do these things in our imagination, it has a tremendous effect on us. And the conversation may even encourage you to go home and talk to your wife and tell her a few more things about what her presence does for you. I'm thinking about that with my partner, Marty. It's like, I think he'd like to know some of these things with more detail. Mm-hmm. I haven't really been that attentive lately. And so I think it can make a really huge difference.
Yeah. That's very sweet. Very nice.
Yes. So many different applications of differentiation, our vocabulary, our feelings, our thoughts, our sensations, our learning. So many.
Yes, and the Feldenkrais Method is an excellent way to have that experience, really, in a very profound and subjective way, in movement, and sensing, and thinking, and feeling, because we bring all of those domains of experience into our lessons.
And as we mentioned, it's a matter of building the skill. It's a skill. It's easy to practice when we understand what it is, and then to apply it to all of these different domains in our lives.
It's true. And once you start getting it, once you start making these distinctions and you're experiencing yourself through Feldenkrais lessons, it becomes more second nature to you to start noticing and making these kind of distinctions. And that helps you to have a more vibrant, bright, engaging, and interesting life that you can tap into your full potential on.
I'll mention one more way that I like to apply this. I walk almost every day. And while I'm walking, I like to pay attention to how I'm walking. And I alter how I'm walking. So it can be a matter of how your heel's striking the ground, or if you're rolling on the inside or the outside of your foot, how you're swinging your legs. Is one leg swinging longer than the other one? Is your opposite shoulder moving correspondingly with the leg? Does the shoulder move back when the left leg comes forward, for example? Or you can just ask the question, what's my right shoulder doing when my left leg goes forward? So you pose a lot of questions. You pay attention to these differentiated movements, and it's very entertaining. But not only is it entertaining, it creates more efficient movement. So you automatically start to go, oh, I could lengthen my spine a little bit, or is my head and neck moving freely? Are my eyes free? Am I seeing outside of myself? So you start differentiating all these parts of yourself, and then they kick in, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. And if I have any kind of little ache or pain, sometimes we all have transitory little pains, maybe a hip joint or your knee or your foot. Start differentiating the movements, and they will go away. It's remarkable.
So true. And so much fun. It becomes the playground of sensation and awareness, and movement, which is endless exploration.
That's right.
And there are more ways that we can experience that, and that is through our Feldenkrais lessons. So you can check out Donna Ray's offerings at her website, donnaray.com. And you can check out lots of offerings on my website, achievingexcellence.com, as a way to deepen your experience and deepen your knowledge and experience of differentiating your different parts of self.
Yes. Thanks, Al. I hope everybody's enjoyed this conversation, and let us know if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Donna Ray.
And I'm Al Wadley.
Welcome to our podcast, Feldenkrais for Life.
In each episode, we will discuss ideas and experiences pertaining to the Feldenkrais Method.
You're going to learn skills that will move pain to comfort, anxiety to ease, and we'll explore learning and how to spark creativity.
To learn more about Donna, visit her site at donnaray.com.
To find Al Wadley, go to achievingexcellence.com.